The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need an experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success, because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. AmericanEagle.com. AmericanEagle.com. Okay, so we are at mid-March somehow already. It's mid-March, and Selection Sunday, as I record this, is just a couple of days away. If you're a men's college basketball fan, if you love the whole deal, you know what Selection Sunday, that's the day where they pick the teams for the NCAA tournament, and you get to see who, and and we got these bracketologists, right? What's the guy's name? Joe Lenardi, I think, who are experts in this. So we got a pretty good idea of where the seedings are going to go, but there's still always some surprises. Who gets the number 1 seed? And then also there's, how do they get a number 12 seed? How were they seeded 5th? And a few teams that unfortunately are on that bubble, on the outside looking in, as they say. And you'll hear from a coach who will be like, damn it, we had quadrant one wins, and conference play should matter. And what about the tournament? All the drama. And I love, though, when they show, the teams all gather, because they have their tournaments usually, right, that weekend. Some of them have finished playing already, but then, and some obviously know they're going to the show, to the big tournament, to the NCAA tournament. But they go crazy. Yeah. Oh, we're going to New Mexico. Oh, we're going to the East Coast. Oh, we're going to play in our home state. It's very cool. I love Selection Sunday. So in that vein, I thought it would be fun to look at my picks for the 10 best days on the sports calendar. In other words, every year we get these days, and regardless of who's involved, these are my picks for the excitement value, for the sports drama value, for the entertainment value, because we talk about all things entertainment here on the Richard Roeper podcast. Now, you could easily say, oh, well, the last game of the World Series, especially if it's a Game 7 or the Stanley Cup final, or, something like that. But we don't know necessarily, first of all, what that date is going to be on the calendar. We have a pretty good idea, but we don't know we don't know if the Stanley Cup is going to go 7 games. It could go 5 games. It could be a 4-game sweep, and then it's not that exciting. So we might know what the scheduled date is, but it's not an annual lock to be one of the 10 greatest days in sports. Sometimes you do get those incredible Game 7s. Often you don't. It's anticlimactic. So I'm not going with any Game 7s in any of the sports, because, again, they're not locks. But these all are. These are scheduled events that, sometimes they don't play out. It could be a rout or some kind of disappointment. But these are the days I most look forward to. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. This, as always, you can hit me up on Twitter at Richard E. Roeper, R-O-E-P-E-R, at Richard E. Roeper. Or email me at rroeper@suntimes.com, rroeper@suntimes.com. I get a lot of great feedback. Sometimes people will be, I'll get a comment from somebody about a podcast from a year ago because they're just finding it, because you can get all of them on all the usual platforms, American Eagle's own podcast platform, or Apple, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of cool when people go back and say, hey, man, I just caught up with your pick of the greatest St. Patrick's Day movies of all time, which, by the way, that's this weekend. And, of course, you have to watch The Fugitive if you're a Chicagoan especially. And not only do they have the St. Patrick's Day parade scene in The Fugitive, but the great line from one of Gerard's men, who says to him, hey, boss, if they could dye the river green for St. Patrick's Day, why can't they dye it blue the rest of the year? That's the line. Anyhow, okay, so these are not 10 through 1 or 1 through 10. These are all just these are my 10 favorites in terms of just being a fan and how much fun they are to watch. Sometimes in person, more likely on television. So I would say for sure, we mentioned Selection Sunday. I'm not necessarily putting that there, although it's one of my favorite days. But the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament, right? That Thursday and Friday we get, where you get like 16 games in 12 hours, and then you get 16 more games in 12 hours. It's so much fun. So many of you, just admit it, you don't get a lot of work done on that Thursday or Friday because you're watching the games on the app or on your TV. because they start like at what, like 10 in the morning, right? 10 or 11 in the morning. And of course, we all fill out our brackets and everybody laments, not everybody, but most people lament because by Friday afternoon, your bracket's completely effed. You're like, well, two of my Final Four teams have lost and I've got, red slashes throughout the entire bracket over here. And you always get the emergence, almost always, you get the Cinderella. You get the 15 seed that pulls off the upset or the 12 seed that beats the number 5 seed. And you start, you get heroes that emerge from small schools, which is really cool. You get a Princeton or you get a Florida Atlantic or whatever, and you get the giants that don't make it. If you just picked all the favorites every year, you're not going to win your bracket. You're not going to win your tournament against people, because even though a lot of times by the time we get to the Final Four, it'll be 2 number 1 seeds and a number 2 seed and a number 3 seed. The path that got them there involved a lot of 3s and 4s and 5s losing early on. So you got to be you got to be creative. Just like I talk about my Oscar ballot, you got to take some chances. And I don't know what the number is, but as you guys know, nobody ever gets all the games right. You think that in a country of more than 300 million, in a world of billions of basketball fans, that somebody somewhere would fill out a flawless bracket. And I think usually by the end of day one, something like 99% of ballots have had registered at least one loss. You almost never even get to through the first round. It's that hard. The odds are astronomical, but that's the fun of it, right? And it's really fun when you pick an upset and it comes through. Not so much fun when you don't. In fact, I'm in a bunch of those bracketology pools every year, and there's a couple where after the first weekend they do a second one for all of us who are just getting crushed in the first one. So that's one of my favorite 10 days. I also love the NFL Championship Sunday. That's the Sunday 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, where you've got your championship games, right? American and national conferences. So you've got your Final Four of football, if you will, back to back. And nowadays, of course, they want to get that primetime viewership. So you get one game at 4 or 5 in the afternoon and one at 7:30. But that's so cool because, yes, you want to win the Super Bowl, but just getting to the Super Bowl is such a huge thing. So many players have an entire career where they never get to the big game. So that's always really cool, those back-to-back games. And then, of course, Super Bowl Sunday, 2 weeks after that. Even though the games, like the Eagles, it really wasn't a competitive game, but it's kind of a great game. First of all, you get, again, heroes emerging, people you have almost never heard of, getting a pick six or returning a kick or having the game of their lives on the defensive line. And, listen, I'm not one of those people that go, oh, I hate the Chiefs, I'm so sick of them. I respect anytime you're looking at a dynasty, but it was kind of amazing to see how the Eagles had figured out a way to just put constant pressure on Patrick Mahomes and have him running around like a little kid back there. He's still one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but forcing mistakes and sacks. So, and I don't watch all the build up to Super Bowl Sunday because it's like 14 hours, but I do like a lot of it. And no matter who's doing the halftime show, it's fun to see everybody getting all worked up about it on the Twitter and everything else. So it's still a major day. And I've done the thing where, you go to the thing or you go to the big parties. I kind of like watching it at home. It used to be a big deal to see all the commercials on Super Bowl Sunday, but now they release them, almost all of them, online in advance. So that's not quite the event it used to be. Still a huge day. Masters Sunday. I love Masters Sunday. I'm not a golfer. If you've ever seen me golf, you would agree that I am not a golfer. I'm a former fairly okay baseball player who golfs like a baseball player. And, it worked for hockey players in Happy Gilmore's universe, but it doesn't really work in the real world. And I don't watch a ton of golf, but I do love watching, especially if there's a close, what do they call it? A match, a tournament, a golf thingy. But Masters Sunday, again, there's the big 4 tournaments and there's the Ryder Cup and there's all kinds of other things. And now you got that other, league or entity. But the Masters, if you win the Masters, for a golfer, whether it's a repeat winner, and sometimes it's an unknown young player, but you think of, some of the great, Masters. Jack Nicklaus won, I think, when he was like something like 46, I want to say. And of course, Tiger Woods. It's just so exciting. I love watching like the Masters Sunday. It's just, and I will say this, they do such a beautiful job of covering golf. Everybody has the cliche about the announcers who are way over here, yet still acting as if They could disturb the putt. But they're so good. The analysts are great because they do a great job for people like me of explaining what's going on, but also, you know, the experts or, you know, the good golfers out there who go all the time can go, okay, I know what they're talking about. And the camera work and the drone shots and the graphics, they do just a beautiful job. So that's another one of my favorites. I love college football semifinal day. That's, you know, kind of the Final Four of college football, where again, you get the two games back to back and you find out who's going to be in the championship game. And I love the fact that they've expanded the NCAA men's football thing to include more games, more teams getting a shot. I think you really are getting a true national champion there. The championship game, of course, is great, but I wish they wouldn't have it on Monday night, like at 9:00 Eastern, guys. I think they're blowing it there because college football is not a Monday night sport. That's a pro football thing. So I think with college football, if you have the semifinal day, I think the following Saturday would be when you'd want to have your championship game. I love MLB opening day, Major League Baseball's opening day, even as a Chicago White Sox fan. And the White Sox, of course, as you may know, had one of the worst seasons in Major League history last year. But spring training is always so cool. And every year, opening day, the pageantry, the bunting, and the introduction of all the players, and hope springs eternal for at least one day. And it's always cool to see the Hall of Famers who are coming back for one of their last seasons. But then, there's always some rookies, some rookie phenoms. But then there's always a couple of stories about some guy who was in the minors for 6 years and had Tommy John surgery or ruptured his Achilles, but he's finally made it to the show and he's 29 or 28 or whatever, and he's playing in the big leagues. I just love the whole pageantry of Major League Opening Day. I also want, here's one that a generation ago I wouldn't have put in my top 100 best days on the sports calendar, but it's the NFL draft, the first night of the NFL draft. I think it goes on for 3 days, but you have to give all credit to the NFL. They have figured out a way to turn the NFL draft into a major, major entertainment extravaganza. It's really cool. If you go back and look, you can look up old footage of the draft from like when they were picking Terry Bradshaw or going back to the 60s. And it was like a bunch of guys in a New York banquet room, everybody's smoking and on landlines. And they didn't even televise it. They'd call guys up at home. Hey, congratulations. You're on the Minnesota Vikings. You're going to get a bonus of $5,000. That's how they had to talk back then. And then over the years, it just became a bigger and bigger deal. And now, they've had it here in Chicago a couple of times. I got to cover it. It's, they have concerts and fan events, and you can go and buy merchandise and, press conference and the cheerleaders and and thousands of people show up, which is still insane to me. I love the fact that each team has their own section, and you'll see people in the full face paint. I love when they wear the full uniform, not just the jersey. And I guess they don't usually wear the pants, but they'll wear like the shoulder pads and the helmet. I like when 50-year-old dudes do that, because God bless you. If you want to do it, it doesn't hurt anybody. It's insane. But the drama now, of course, and again, we have Mel Kiper and these other experts. So, and here's who's the best player left on the board. And, it's a big year for cornerbacks, or like last year, quarterbacks. This year, not so much with the quarterbacks, but the drama of it. And then you see these young guys who, God bless them, man, yes, I know now with the NIL, some guys are making millions of dollars in advance, but it's still an incredible thing. And that very, very, very tiny percentage of players who ever make it to the NFL, and they got that beautiful suits, and then they put the hat on, and then Roger Goodell gives them the big hug. And then you always get the drama where somebody who thought they were going to go in the top 10 is still there on day 2. And they're like, what the F happened, man? So they've just done a great job and then you get all the, who had a great draft. We won't know for 5 years, but let's grade it anyway. I love watching it, I have to admit. A couple more in my top 10. First full Saturday of college football is always really cool. You get like week 0, I think they call it, which I don't understand why they call it. But there's a couple of games, right, in late August. And then you have that first full weekend right around Labor Day, or maybe the weekend after that. And it's, it's a ritual. It's like when I was younger, it was like, okay, we're back in school, but also meant that I was playing football, sort of. I was on teams at least, And, but I love autumn. People in Chicago, a lot of times it's their favorite season. We love all our seasons, even winter, believe it or not. There's something cool about autumn. And then the fact that you're like, okay, college football is here. We're going to have football now, whether it's college or the pros, almost every day, because now they'll have like Wednesday night college games. We have Monday night NFL, Thursday NFL. And it's, for those of us who love football, college and pros, I love that first full Saturday of college football. Oh, Kentucky Derby. That's another one, even if you're not a huge horse racing guy. And I used to be really into it. And I have friends who have owned some pretty big time horses, and I've gotten a chance to go, and it's really cool to go to the paddock and all that stuff. But no matter what, the Derby, again, they always call it the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. And it's actually kind of weird because the first minute and a half, you're like, where's my horse? Which one's mine? What's going on here? But that down the stretch they call them is still incredible. There's always great stories there about there was a horse I know where it was kind of a crowdfunding kind of thing where a bunch of people owned a little piece of the horse, so to speak. And then you have, the greats of all time, the Secretariat type horses. You'll get the big upsets. Sometimes there's an inquiry. And again, all the pageantry and the outfits and the lead up races. And again, they do such a beautiful job of covering not just the Derby, but, there's also the Preakness and the Belmont and the Breeders' Cup. But the Derby would be in my top 10. And then I'm going to round out my list with Thanksgiving Day NFL football, right? How great is that? And now I think they do a triple header, right, with Thanksgiving Day football. And you get some pretty good college games now the day after. And yeah, there's always that kind of yin and yang and battle and kind of like how much are you going to watch football and how much are you going to, have family time. But I think for a lot of families, it helps that you got the damn football game. It keeps you from talking politics or that time the cousin pissed you off, and you can just get into the game, put a couple bucks on it, turn off the TV for dinner, but then there's usually a basement or garage where people are watching. So to me, I love Thanksgiving Day NFL football, not only for the football, and you get the traditions, of course, with the Lions always playing, and now the big turkey thing, the John Madden thing. But it also just it gives you memories of family and Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday. I know for some people it's the most stressful, but it's my favorite. So I think that was 10. You guys aren't counting, are you? You better not be counting. You might have been counting. My 10 favorite sports days on the calendar right there for you. Oh, gosh, do we have time to get to this? I'm going to save this. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. I'm looking at my little outline. I'm going to save this for next podcast. Just something. I'll plant the seed for it. I got so much into the top 10 days on the sports calendar. I ran a little late here, a little long. But next podcast, I want to talk about rewatching favorite television series. I had a good conversation with an old friend of mine at lunch the other day who was happened to be rewatching the same show that I was rewatching. And I just want to kind of get into this, and I'm sure all of you guys know what I'm talking about. You love a show, and then do you revisit it 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, or never? There's some shows that I don't want to watch again because they're just like with some movies, they're too intense. And even though they're great. So I just had a recent rewatch experience, and it's like everybody else. I just stumbled into it. I didn't think I was going to start rewatching this thing, and I wanted to look up an episode of this particular series because I wanted to make sure I remembered that a certain guest star was on there. And then I just went back to episode 1, season 1, and just last night watched the series finale. So we're going to talk about that next time. Think about all the shows that you like to rewatch. What are we going to do now? We're going to take a break and talk about Portillo's and then a couple of reviews for you. All right, kids, let's talk about Portillo's. It's one of my favorite places to eat on the planet Earth. My delivery history will bear this out. I also happen to live within walking distance of one of the Chicago Portillo's. Yes, that's right. I'm that lucky. It is amazing. You could order from the restaurant or the drive-thru, but if it's not near you, you can go to portillos.com, and order. They got French fries. They got all kinds of comfort food, the amazing hot dogs, the Italian beef, the Italian sausage, some really good salads, by the way, if you want to take it a little bit easy, because you want to have a little bit room left for the chocolate cake, the best chocolate cake in the world. Think about it. Portillos.com, Portillos.com. That's how you spell it, Portillos.com.
I grew up here. Went to elementary school down the street. And so did a lot of the girls working the avenue today.
These women are good people. The men, they're a different story.
It's our job to protect them.
She got in a car with a John about a month ago. I haven't seen her since.
I saw a red pickup truck outside of my house.
You think he's following you?
Mom, I'm scared. You stay away from me.
Wait, you know him? Yeah, I know him.
You know him too.
She's still out there.
This thing is far bigger than we thought.
Mickey, don't go in!
You gotta let it go.
I'll let it go when I find her.
I want to talk about a series called Long Bright River. It's on Peacock. This is a limited series, a thriller. Really good. 3.5 stars for Long Bright River. This is one of those, it's not a true crime series, it's a drama. But it's got that, that if you love those series where they're, kind of like Mayor of Easttown kind of series where it's gritty and there's some really tough stuff to watch because it's, horrible violence, but also a lot of drama and great flashbacks. This one's called Long Bright River on Peacock. It's based on a book of the same name by Liz Moore. And it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, they're going to make this into a miniseries. It's an 8-part thriller. It's all about the world of drugs and murders on the dark streets of Philadelphia, some of the roughest neighborhoods. And Amanda Seyfried, and by the way, it's Amanda Seyfried, just like that. I know people like to say Amanda Seyfried. There's certain names that are forever going to be pronounced a certain way. It's not Charlize Theron. It's Charlize Theron. But in any case, Emmy Award winner Amanda Seyfried. So she plays a Philadelphia police officer named Mickey, and she patrols this neighborhood where the opioid crisis is just, destroying lives. And then Ashley Cummings plays her sister Casey, who, it's not really giving this away, who is fallen prey and has become an addict. And there's a lot of flashbacks about the dynamic between the two sisters. Amanda Seyfried is so good here. There's sometimes you see certain actors and you're like, I don't believe them as a cop. I believed her as a cop. Some of it's heartbreaking to watch. Great supporting cast. It's called Long Bright River on Peacock, and you should definitely check it out. And speaking of crime, and this is more in the realm, not more in the realm, it is in the realm of true crime. There's a new documentary on Netflix called Chaos, the Manson Murders.
It's one of the scariest true stories out there. An 8.5-month pregnant, beautiful woman getting stabbed to death. Manson was able to gain control of his followers. He could get them to go out and kill on command without remorse. How did he learn how to brainwash those kids and turn them into monsters? There were these research scientists who were working secretly for the government.
One of the most bizarre episodes in CIA history.
Planted false memories in people without their awareness.
Manson was really into mind control.
I understood what I was doing, but it just didn't make any difference.
Manson became exactly what the CIA was trying to create.
Well, you're suggesting Manson was a puppet.
There have been well over more than a dozen documentaries about the Manson murders, going all the way back to the early 70s. And in the last 10 years, by my count, I think we've had 8 or 9. And it's lost audio tapes, and it's sometimes they look at different angles, or they talk about the Manson women. And my first feeling about Chaos, the Manson Murders on Netflix, I'm like, I don't know that I necessarily need to see another documentary. And now listen, I'm like everybody else, or like a lot of other people, I should say. We have this ongoing and morbid fascination with that, that horrific series of murders. There's a reason why Quentin Tarantino tapped into that for the fictionalized take in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I am giving this 3 stars, and I was interested in it because it's directed by Errol Morris, who is one of the great documentary filmmakers of the last half century. The Thin Blue Line, Gates of Heaven, Fog of War. So he's done amazing documentaries. And this is kind of interesting because, and I don't believe this, I don't buy into it, but it's a look at mind control. And obviously Manson had some sort of hold over, the Manson family, if you will. He directed them to commit murders, and they did it. it was definitely a cult type situation. But this documentary looks into certain government programs of the 50s and 60s that actually delved and experimented with mind control. And this is all true. This is documented. The CIA had this program where they would do experiments sometimes on subjects who didn't know they were being given LSD. And it was all about planting false memories. And there was a doctor who was at the forefront of this crazy research, completely unethical research, who was based at one point at a clinic where Manson would frequent several times because of STDs. So there's some overlap and there's some suspicious things. Why did Manson keep getting, he was on parole and he'd violate his parole and they'd let him go. Did the government want him to start trouble with the Black Panthers? It gets really into deep conspiracy stuff. I don't buy into it. A lot of it's based on a book called Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA and the Secret History of the 60s by Tom O'Neill, who's featured prominently in the documentary. But it definitely raises some interesting questions, and it's still amazing to see some of the archival footage, the interviews, and just the recap of what happened. So it's called Chaos, The Manson Murders. It's on Netflix. I completely get it if you're like, I don't need to see another Charles Manson documentary or read another book ever again. But if you're into it or you just want to see a different angle on it, it's very well made. I'll say that. All right, that's going to do it for the podcast. I'll talk to you guys again, I don't know, let's say a week from now. Thanks so much for listening.